Can you see anything wrong with this picture? How about now? This happened to a friend of mine when a copy of a RAM mount let go of the handlebars and dropped the satnav between the tank and the forks. What this meant is that although he could turn right, he couldn't move the bars to the left, and he stuck his foot down, lost his footing and dropped the bike. So he picked himself up, dusted himself down and let me have the parts to have a look at them and a measure up. And this is what I've found. I've linked a few parts together here. Starting on the left, we have the copy RAM mount that he had mounted on his handlebars, the joining bar, followed by a genuine double ball RAM mount link, followed by a genuine RAM mount bar, followed by a genuine RAM mount adder ball. And I've covered RAM mounts for mounting cameras in a previous film. So I linked these together as shown and provided the same torque to both the RAM mount and the copy. And then I tried to pull them apart. And it was surprisingly easy to pull the copy RAM mount handlebar mount from the copy RAM mount bar. It wasn't so easy to pull the bar off the genuine, but the genuine RAM mount did not move, and this was nowhere nearly fully tightened. I also did another test where I finger tightened the copy part until the mount couldn't quite be moved by my finger, and again it was very easy to pull the ball straight out of the arm. With a genuine one, I nipped this up as well and left the ball free to move, and I could not pull the arm from the mounting point. So what I did next was take a few genuine and the copy RAM mount parts and measure them all up, starting with the balls and then moving on to take 5 measurements from the actual arms themselves. I measured the gap where the circular section goes parallel and the throat of the RAM mount, and also the depth of the retaining system from the end of the jaw to the bottom of the socket. I also measured the front of each clamp part, the width between the inner section of the jaws and the overall jaw height. And this was done with a proper vernier caliper rather than just trying to use a ruler. And here are the measurements I got. The balls are a nominal 1 inch or 25.4 mil. You can see the actual diameter, and the knockoff one is considerably smaller than any of the RAM mount ones. Looking at the socket arm, the dimensions A and B are interesting. The RAM mount dimension B, which is the open end of the jaws when it's fully closed, is less than the measurement where the jaws go parallel, meaning that the jaws actually close in slightly. The copy version, the jaws are widening out slightly. Also, dimension C, which is the depth from the front of the jaws to the bottom of the ball socket, is considerably less on the copy version, and the open end of the jaws is considerably larger than the genuine RAM mount. Another factor is that when you fully tighten a RAM mount clamp, the two halves do not touch. The screw thread bottoms out, so that all the pressure you've used to clamp it with is applied to the ball rather than the two halves of the clamp. This can be seen by a fully closed RAM mount here, showing a gap between the two halves of the clamp, whereas on the copy version the only gap you can see is a very small one when a genuine RAM mount ball is used. And what this means is, on the copy version, the balls will not be being retained by all the pressure you've put on the wing nut. Instead, some of this is actually clamping the two halves together. Ally this with the fact that the jaws open up on the copy versions and close up on the RAM, you can see that there's no secondary retaining effect. If you use a genuine RAM mount, you have to open it quite a long way to get the balls in, and then just partially closing it means everything's retained, although it will still be loose enough to enable you to position the camera, satnav or whatever else you have properly. Now, we can't be absolutely sure that the RAM mount copy falling off was the cause of the accident, but nothing else was jamming the steering, and the satnav was jammed between the tank and the forks when we lifted the bike up. So this does look like the explanation, and it's lucky this happened in a town rather than 30 seconds either side when we were in a national speed limit on some very twisty road. And there would have been a huge difference there in the outcome between a couple of scratches and a new clutch lever needed to going through a hedge at speed. So if you are using copies of RAM mounts or other mounting systems, have a good look at them and make sure they are suitable for purpose and that nothing can come adrift like they did in this case. He got away with it this time, but it could have ended up so much worse. Anyway, until the next film, goodbye for now. A more in-depth version of this is available on the link, and you can see some of my other videos and playlists here.